Hey, I'm Lisa Roman.
And I'm Sandra Herrera.
And we're the hosts of a new CBS Sports podcast called Attacking Third, covering the NWSL, the U.S. Women's National Team, and more.
Check us out 3 times a week for previews, recaps, and interviews, available anywhere podcasts are found.
Good morning. It is Tuesday, July 13th. You are listening to the College Football Daily. My name is Lance Glenn. I hope everyone had a good Monday and enjoyed yesterday's conversation about Mississippi State. Before we start, I wanted to remind everyone that if you like what you hear, make sure to drop us a 5-star rating and leave us a review. We love to see your comments and would be so gracious for feedback if you want us to cover a topic we haven't already, or if we haven't hit your favorite team yet as we preview all the Power 5 schools and some Group of 5s as well this offseason on the College Football Daily. Of course, if we have already covered your favorite team and you missed it or you want to listen back, don't worry. We have all the episodes in one place for you. Just go to Spotify, search for the playlist Across the Country with the College Football Daily, and listen as we preview your favorite program. We are continuing our goal of hitting all the Power 5 teams and a few Group of 5 schools today as we preview Maryland. Joining me to discuss the program is the founder and publisher of 24/7 Sports Inside, mdsports.com, Jeff Ehrman. Jeff, how are we doing? Thanks so much for coming on and joining me today.
Doing good, Lance. Thanks for having me.
So, Jeff, I want to jump straight to the roster. I think Maryland's most well-known player has to be quarterback Taulia Tagovailoa, the returning starter at the position, and of course Tua's brother who now plays for the Dolphins. He made 4 starts last season. I think what we saw in those 4 starts was inconsistency, right? The Terps got outscored 70-14 in the 2 losses, and in those 2 losses he had 1 touchdown to 6 interceptions. In the 2 wins they had with him under center, he had 6 touchdowns to 1 interception. So at least stats-wise, really a complete reversal from wins to losses. What led to last year's inconsistency with him, and what, in your opinion, did he need to focus on this offseason so that the difference in his play when you compare wins and losses next year isn't so stark?
Yeah, that's true. He was a different guy from game to game. Obviously, he had a horrendous opener against Northwestern and then rebounded really well the next game. He was great at Penn State. So I think some of it is just the fact that he was in his first year as a starter. He never really played college football. He played a few mop-up minutes at Alabama. So basically, you were sort of talking about a true freshman in effect, even though he was not a true freshman, but he barely played. And then I think also, that's partly why you saw Loxley make a change at offensive coordinator. I think he felt like the play calling maybe could have been a little better. Now he's got Dan Enos, who he worked with at Alabama. The two had a record-setting season when they worked together there. So I think they're really excited about that and expect him to take the next step because, he's not his brother necessarily, but he is the most dynamic quarterback Maryland's had in quite some time now. If he can play a little bit closer, on average to those big games that he had, then they're really onto something.
Regarding the roster too, I was just doing some research. Obviously, Jake Funk went to the NFL, and Maryland now has to replace all the production that he had. And last year, just looking at stats, there wasn't much behind Jake Funk in the running game. It was kind of him. Taulia, would take off here and there, but it was really just kind of Jake Funk out of the backfield. Who are you looking at to kind of replace him? Is it one particular guy, or are they going to go sort of like a running back by committee to replace all his production?
Yeah, that's a big question for them. They've had a good run of, NFL running backs, Jake Funk, Anthony McFarland before him, and Ty Johnson before him. All those guys were drafted. And now you don't necessarily have a guy like that. Tayon Fleet Davis is going to get the first shot. He's a veteran guy, been around forever, has played well in little spurts, also had some off-field issues that kept him out for a full year. So, it's hard to know what to expect but he'll definitely get the first shot. He's a really good pass catcher out of the backfield. I think there's a chance he could be really good. It'll be interesting to see if maybe some of Funk's success last year was based on the offense that they have, if Fleet thrives in a similar way. And then behind him, you've got a couple guys who played as true freshmen, Isaiah Jacobs, who's the younger brother of Josh Jacobs, former Alabama star and now Raiders star, and Penny Boone, former 4-star recruit from Detroit. Massive kid, about 6'2", 250, 260, but really light on his feet for that size. So those guys will all get chances. But yeah, as you said, there's no established running back going into the year. So that's going to be really interesting to see if they can find a guy.
And as I was looking up everything about Maryland last season, one thing that kind of stood out to me were the penalty numbers, right? I mean, they were, look, last in the Big Ten by a wide margin in total penalty yards per game. I think close to about 80 yards per game. They averaged about, I think, 9 penalties a game. Was that something that was mentioned as, I guess, a need to change area during last season? And do you get expected to, I guess, get better in 2021? I mean, they really have no place other than up to go. I mean, it kind of has to get better, right?
Yeah, Mike Loxley was not happy about that all season. That would be, one of the first things he'd talk about after a lot of the games, and the lack of discipline. It's hard to know why. He is, some people would say he's known as a player's coach. So maybe that's some of it. He's not one of these, drill sergeant guys. And so maybe that's the problem. It was a problem again in the spring game, actually this year. And that was his, immediate frustration again. So that's something, that's a good observation on your part. That's something they absolutely have to fix, because when you're trying to make a move in such a difficult division of such a difficult conference, you can't be giving away yards and points to the other teams. You need to be very efficient, and so that's something they absolutely have to get better at.
And on the coaching staff, Mike Loxley did bring in 2 new coordinators. You mentioned one earlier, Dan Enos as offensive coordinator and Brian Stewart as defensive coordinator. Now, Stewart was, in fact, DC at Maryland from 2012 to 2014, while this is Enos' first tenure in College Park. Look, Loxley is obviously an offensive guy, so I don't know, at least on that side of the ball, if we will see, I guess, significant impact. But do you expect with new coordinators we may see some changes in both units, or can we assume that things will, I guess, relatively remain the same with tweaks kind of here and there?
I think they'll remain somewhat similar. I think Loxley feels like Dan Enos is kind of on his same wavelength in terms of play calling, kind of will call whatever Loxley might call in certain situations. So I think he thinks the offense will be more productive and explosive. Similar, it'll be the same offense, but I think he feels like the flow will be better. Defensively, should be fairly similar. They say Brian Stewart's going to be very aggressive with blitzing, and so they're looking at an aggressive defense this year, and they've got a lot more better personnel than they've had defensively for several years. So I think that's going to be really interesting. Defensive line has been a weakness for a while, but now they've got several veterans coming back, along with maybe the best defensive line class Maryland has ever signed. They got a lot of good young defensive backs who are now making their way into veterans. So Stewart's got a lot to work with there on that side too.
With Mike Loxley, look, obviously a local guy, is recruiting, you mentioned it really, really well, very popular in the area. You look at the Maryland team recruiting rankings from 2019 to this past 2021 class, 47th in 2019, okay, a transition class, 31st in 2020, obviously a big improvement, 18th in 2021, a jump into the top 25. The only problem I see, at least through the first 2 seasons, however, is the results just haven't been there. And obviously, Loxley's previous stop at New Mexico, he had trouble on the results side of things as well. What is fan perception right now of Mike Loxley and just the job that he's done so far now going into year 3?
I think the fans are really happy with him. They love him personally. He's a Maryland guy through and through. It's where he wants to be. A lot of guys say it's their dream job. This is literally his dream job, and he's recruited really well. So, they want to see some improvement this year. This is year 3, obviously. This is the time to start winning a few more games. They've seen the recruiting improve, but like you said, he does have to work against that perception from his struggles at New Mexico and the past few years. I think pretty much everyone gives him a pass for the past few years at Maryland because it's such a big rebuilding job. But this is the time where, no one's expecting a 10-win season or anything like that, but they do want to see improvement. This is the year they would love to just if you could get to a bowl game this year, I think they would be thrilled.
And speaking of, expectations, let's finish it off with this. I've seen some sportsbooks have Maryland's win total over under at around 6 games. I've seen various predictions that have them win 6 games, win 5 games, all the way down to some having them only win 3. So expectations just generally from the people that are paid to make predictions, they kind of seem to be all over the place. Open the season with home games against West Virginia and Howard, then on the road against Illinois and home against Kent State. After that, you have Iowa and Ohio State, but it's very possible Maryland can start the season 4-0. That's, I don't think, definitely not a stretch. You don't need to give me a win total if you don't want to, but what are your, I guess, just general expectations for this team and what they can do in 2021?
Yeah, those first 4 games are going to pretty much set the tone. They need to win at least 3 of those, I would say. West Virginia, obviously, being the big swing game. The other 3 would be, pretty disastrous to lose any of those 3. Maybe I shouldn't say that about Illinois, but that's one you should win if you want to, have a really good season and get to a bowl game. Illinois being, in the first year under a new coach and kind of a downtrodden program. So, I think right in that 5.5 range seems pretty appropriate to me as an over-under for wins, right between 5 and 6. If they get 5, I think people will be okay with that. If they get 6, they'll be happy. Anything above that, they'll probably be thrilled, just all things considered. But they should. I mean, last year, I think they were better than expected last year. Last year, the wins total, I think, was 3.5, and that was including the non-conference games that were all, eventually canceled, and they won 2 out of 5 Big Ten games. So they were on pace to surpass that pretty easily, I think. So, this is the year where you definitely want to get back again into that bowl eligibility range, and I think they have the talent to do it.
You can follow him on Twitter at Jeff_Erman, and make sure to check out InsideMDSports.com. Jeff, thanks so much for giving me the time today. I really appreciate you for coming on.
Thanks, Lance. Appreciate you.
Remember that if you like what you hear, make sure to drop us a 5-star rating and a review. We'd love to hear what you think. If you have any questions, any ideas for a topic, or if you haven't heard your favorite team yet. Also, if you've noticed that we have a bonus episode out today, it's because each day this week, Brandon Marcello is running through the projected order of finish for each Power 5 conference. Yesterday was ACC, today the SEC, and tomorrow is the Big 12. My name is Lance Glynn. Enjoy your Tuesday, everyone. Trey will be back tomorrow for the next edition of the College Football Daily.
Everybody, this is Luis Miguel Echegaray. I want to make sure you know all about Que Golazo, a daily soccer podcast from CBS Sports and part of the CBS Sports Podcast Network, bringing you the latest news, analysis, and a celebration of the beautiful game. For the best analysis and betting tips, join us every weekday as we give you your daily soccer dose. We have the best talent, including Jimmy Conrad, Jonathan Johnson, James Bench, Heath Pierce, and many more. And this summer, we have plenty, including Nations League, Euros, Copa America, and the transfer market with Fabrizio Romano. Look out for our show every morning. Follow Que Golazo on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you listen to your pods. Now get ready to yell, Que Golazo!